As I study the lives of centenarians, those people who live to over 100, one thing they have in common is they have lives with purpose, passion, and meaning. And now listen to this great story of Elinor Peace Bailey. Elinor is particularly known for her dolls that she creates, whimsical creatures with character that are colorful and full of life.
Now, the reason the dolls came was because I got involved with a group of women when I was about in my mid-30s.
Dr. Claudia Kawas, who did the 90 plus study, found that the more people go out and do things with people, the longer they live and the healthier they are.
And there were 13 of us, and we all had different kinds of disciplines. There wasn't a quilter in the bunch, so I got all the fabric. I found that if a piece wasn't terribly interesting the way it was, if you slap a doll on it, it automatically sold. And so I took that as a message. Slap dolls on things. And then I found that the doll itself created such an interesting dialogue that I became fascinated with the form. I've always loved the human figure. I've taken life drawing classes, and I love the human form. It's like a huge landscape, particularly the female form. And it just enchants me.
Do you notice how easily Elinor laughs? And when she laughs from deep in her belly. You can almost feel her cells laughing with her. And laughter is so health enhancing. Not only that, but notice how things enchant her. She's just not vaguely interested, she's fully involved with life. And the dolls weren't just about creativity and creating. The dolls were also there for a very particular purpose. She found a way to negotiate her way through the world by thinking outside the box and coming up with different solutions.
The dolls were such a treat because what they did was they became a foil. And they would enter in between me and the person to whom I was speaking. And they were amusing, they were gentle, they were, all of these things that I also am. And but they cut the anger.
And notice how Elinor, without bragging, talks about how she's also amusing and gentle, but then she discusses all the parts of her. So she doesn't disown the angry part of her, it's just another part of her. She doesn't dislike the angry part of her, she just realizes she wants to find a different way to negotiate her way through the world.
I think anybody who's on the outside or thinks of themselves or is conscious or aware of themselves being on the outside socially has an attitude. Now their attitude is either self-anger, which would create depression, turn inward, or it's anger turned outwards. If it's anger turned outwards, why wouldn't people run away? Of course they would run away, which is counterproductive for the person who really wants nothing more than to be loved.
And notice how she doesn't blame other people. She takes responsibility and looks back and says, of course I would have pushed them away. So she doesn't adopt a victim role. She doesn't moan and groan and lament about people who didn't like her. She just takes responsibility and moves on. And why is that a health measure, you may be asking? Well, resentment and anger literally are the acid that destroys the container they're held in. So if you're holding those in your body, the way your cells work is changing. The genes that are accessed and being written are changing.
Yeah. And so I learned how to wear clothing that allowed me to be quiet because it was so noisy.
Science increasingly is showing us that being able to quiet the mind is really great, not only for our mental cognition, but also for our overall health.
I learned how to make dolls, which I can present between me and an audience. I'm really good with audiences.
Do you see how Elinor acknowledges her worth and where she's good? Believe it or not, that's a great way to stay healthy.
And all of those things acted as a foil for the anger that was there, for being left out when no doubt people left me out because they felt that's what I wanted. And my anger's turned outward, and I've had to learn to manage that. And because I'm a super conscious person, and I tell myself stories, that became my narrative, that I would find a way between me and you to be, to exist, and to exist comfortably in a culture which is afraid of difference.
Notice how Elinor notices the difference, but doesn't say, I've got to change myself to fit in. What she does is finds a way to negotiate and still hold on to her difference, so still to honor and value her uniqueness. It's incredibly healthful to be able to hold on to what you believe to be true about yourself. There's so much stress involved in living a life where you aren't true to you, where you're trying to fit in all the time and change parts of yourself in order to feel good enough.
All cultures are afraid of difference, no matter what culture they are. And the ones who claim not to be afraid are the most afraid. I think. Yeah.
And I love how Elinor makes sense of the fact that all cultures are afraid of difference. It's like she's introducing what Dr. Kristen Neff calls common humanity, where she recognizes that she isn't alone and isolated, that the culture she's living in isn't the only one that is afraid of difference. If we use common humanity to think about some of our problems, we wouldn't feel nearly as alone and isolated. And there's nothing more healthy roading than feeling like you're alone and lonely in this world. To be inspired by more stories about centenarians and the research on how to live to over 100, visit www.secrets-to-100. Sign up for our free ebook and ongoing tips, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel.